Should Christians date? And if so, how can you as a Christian man make sure that you are dating the right way? In this episode, we're going to be having a conversation with my friend Brandon Walker as we explore what it takes to have an amazing dating relationship as a Christian man. All that coming up. Let's get it. Hey, so if this is our first time meeting, my name is James Howard Jr. I'd like to thank you for checking out this episode of the Man to Man podcast. This podcast is all about helping men honor God in every single part of their lives. And so if you think you would be interested in any kind of content like that in the future, I want you to go ahead and smash that subscribe button right now. All right, let's jump into this conversation with my friend Brandon Walker. Should Christian men date?
I think it's important for Christian men to date. The reason why I say that is because you want to know what you're looking for, right? You want to be able to develop qualities of, how am I as far as in a person while dating? But I think there also has to be the right heart behind it. So a lot of people kind of go into dating like, oh, let's just go mingle. And of course, as Christians, we can look to social media. Social media, that's not the right way to do it whatsoever. What media says, what TV says is dating, because in that realm of dating, what the world says is, then you have to bring all those other things that are not God-like, that are not Christ-like. And so you have to go into it saying, okay, if I find somebody, I like them, it's like, okay, let me try it out. Like, we'll go into it with the right heart. Like, okay, Lord, like, can date. Let's just see what it's about. And don't fall into what the world has as what dating is, but go in there, I think, with an open heart to say, all right, Lord, like, use me to find myself. Because if you've never dated before, or you're maybe scared to date, the Lord can help you with that, of course. But finding out who you may want to marry is also important too. And so I think it's just the right heart behind it, man. Like, if you go in what the world says dating, I think many of us that have probably been down that path before have probably fell into whatever. And I'm not perfect by any means, but that's possible to happen. Those things happen, and not only does that hurt her, but that hurts you, and that pulls you further away from Christ.
Yeah, and I think dating is important for a Christian man. Because like you said, you find out what kind of person you want to spend, the rest of your life with. And I think the idea of this aimless, hookup culture where your whole goal is to have sex as a Christian man, obviously that can't be our goal going into any type of relationship, right? A dating relationship, because you want to honor God with your body and stuff like that. And so, like you said, man, you're going in with a mindset that's saying, hey, I'm looking for someone or looking for something that I like. I mean, and you may date somebody and be like, oh, snap, I don't like that.
Exactly.
Like,
right.
Okay.
Be able to kind of scratch that off. It's like those, I guess you could, traits or attributes that she may have. You can say like, yeah, I wasn't really feeling that, whatever that may be, X, Y, Z. And then if you can figure that out, again, going in it the right way, godly, it's like you're able to put your hands up and be like, all right, well, hey, like, we tried, like, that's just not what I'm looking for. And that's okay. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I think there's like a reevaluation after that, right? Like, well, that didn't work out. I didn't like those traits of her. All right, I need to steer away from those traits. And then reevaluate, what am I really looking like? What am I really looking for? Yeah.
And that's one thing, man. I think like with dating, that's why we have to be careful, especially as men, to wait for things like sex until you find the person and y'all get married. Because like when you introduce sex into a dating relationship, man, there is a connection on a spiritual level, or some kind of intertwined, unexplainable connection that God created for.
It's a soul tie. Yeah, I mean, like just being full transparent. Like that was you'd asked me, James. You were like, are you still with your former girlfriend? And I said, no. Thankfully, the Lord got me out of that situation. That was very toxic. And I mean, it's it's nothing to be like afraid of opening up about. It's life. I mean, like we're all going to go through situations that are not good, and I think the Lord uses them as teaching tools in our life to say, like, hey, like you saw how far that took you away from me. Let's try to like, all right, you got through the relationship, like you came out of it. It was a teaching tool. That's why there's always a reevaluation. And sometimes it's hard to get out of those relationships that do have soul ties. And the longer you stay in them, the longer the enemy keeps you there. And it's harder to get out of them. And so, like, I'll tell anybody, like, going into a relationship, that's why, you know, as believers and men of Christ, like, there's always boundaries. And, like, it's important to keep those boundaries because, like, once you cross that boundary, it's like, it's hard to get out of it because like then you fall in like there's this misconception of love, which is you think is love, but it's just really lust. And that sin nature continues to draw you back in. That's what the enemy ultimately wants, right? You know, just to continue to draw you back in. So many believers, now again, I've been there myself, get lost in that. And it's like, oh man, I guess this is what it looks like. Because I mean, honestly, that was really my first real relationship for 2.5 years. But that's not what love looks like. That's not what the Lord wants. But I know that He knew I was going to go through that, you know, before I was even born. Yeah. And that was something I needed to go through to get me to where I am now. Right.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So you're at a point now, man, where you're in a healthy dating relationship. Things are going well from what we said off camera. So going into this obviously more healthy or healthier relationship, where you're honoring God in it, and y'all are setting boundaries. Y'all have done what you have to do to honor God in your relationship, man. What would you say to a guy who is seeking to have that type of relationship? What would you say are some things that he needs to be thinking of before he dives into his next relationship or whatever? Or maybe some things he needs to be changing in his relationship now to make it more God honoring or, you know, better or healthier?
Right. I've definitely kind of going back, James, I kind of mentioned this a little bit before. Again, like after, you know, the whirlwind of that past relationship where I was in a toxic relationship for 2 years. Again, just a few years ago, reevaluation. So like right now, say if that guy's like, okay, you know, I'm looking, I'm seeking, and especially like, I think there's a difference. And just to throw this in here, prior to meeting Morgan, who I'm dating now and who I will marry, honestly, the Lord had put it on my heart that you need to be preparing for your wife. Mm-hmm. And so there's also a time that comes in a man's life where it's heavy on our spirit. If you have that feeling, especially if you're talking about somebody that's close to the Lord, that's a praying man, that's like, okay, like that has a relationship with the Lord. He's gonna I feel like there's a moment in every man's life that is a believer, that is searching, that is seeking the Lord, that He's gonna put that on our heart to say, hey, it's time to get ready. Right. And whatever that looks like. And I'm sure you've probably been there before, you know, prior to meeting your wife. There's like, there's like this urgency, like, okay, right, I need to be getting ready. And so whatever that looks like, that's when I made the plan. Like I said, okay, Lord, let me sit down and write down not 10 things that I want, or don't put a number on it, but the things that I need in a wife instead of the wants that I want in a wife. You know, a lot of guys out here, and even I had to deal with this too. It was like, like they got to have a body. They got to have a personality. They got to be able to cook. You know, they got to have these legs. And again, all of that fades 10 years from now. And you've been in a marriage 11. I mean, look back, 5 years ago, you were probably somebody, different. Not like a total different person, but like personality.
I didn't have as much muscle as I have now. You know.
Right.
I was a little different. You know.
Right. And so I would say that probably be the preparation, like praying and preparing yourself before going and seeking anybody else. Like, that may be a season. Rather, the Lord has you in that for 1 or 2 or 3, or it may be 6 or 7 months, kind of like I was when I got out of my past relationship. It was a couple months where I was kind of, the Lord was helping me build up, and then a few months went by, and then it was like, okay, you need to be preparing, and boom, that's when I found Morgan. So again, it's just like, you go through avenues. There may be months, it may be a year, but I think the biggest thing is preparing and praying. I think that's the biggest thing before going into a relationship.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that, it might just be saying what you said in a different way. I think one of the main things that we need to, as men, do is make sure that we are prepared, make sure that we are ready. And really just evaluate like what it looks like to be in a serious relationship. And I know, like, for me in my life, man, there were some things that I just had to get rid of. I had to stop doing. And like I was trying to have a relationship with somebody who really didn't want to have a relationship with me. And I got to the point where I said, you know what, I need to stop worrying about them, stop trying to figure out what they want and how they feel about it, how she feels about it, or whatever. And really started focusing, and I got frustrated. I got to the point where I was like, okay, God, like, forget this whole dating thing, God. Right. And like, I had to get to a point, like you said, where it's just like, man, let me work on me. And I heard it as clear as day. Like, God was like, bruh, like, you need to work on yourself. And God kind of turned that mirror back on me. And I saw, man, that there's some, like, I had some mess in my life. And I've talked about this. I talk about it a lot on my channel. But my big thing, my struggle was with pornography and stuff back in the day. And God, he revealed that to me. It was like, hey, like, you need to get rid of this amongst some other things before you even think about diving into any type of relationship. And I started to work through that, man. And God started to free me from that and cleanse me from that and all this kind of stuff and different mindsets and stuff like that. And as I went through that process, man, it was crazy, but like, my wife just pops up out of nowhere. She just pops up out of nowhere. And we found out later on in our dating relationship, and even into our marriage, man, that we possibly could have known each other when we were younger. Like, we went to the same church. Wow. We had a lot of the same like groups. She went to a totally different school. She went to Summerall High School. I went to Oak Grove High School. She had friends from Oak Grove and like who I knew. But we never met. We never connected. And it was something that God was doing to her around the same time. And some things that God was doing to me that he worked out through both of us, man. And all of a sudden, man, we met. And it was just like we both were ready. And so I was just would encourage any guys who are out there, man, if you're seeking a serious relationship, like one that you're seeking to marry somebody in, like Brandon said, man, like, work on yourself. And I mentor a lot of guys, and one of the things, like, for those who are like, for the guys who are trying to like date and stuff like that, one thing we have to do is like really look at each other and be like what mess you got that you need to work on. Like, you don't need to be bringing a whole bunch of messes to a relationship because like that ain't gonna help nobody. Like, you need to work on you, homeboy, before you even bring any of that into any kind of relationship. So I was just, like you said, encourage you, man, to just really look inside, see what God is trying to do. And allow him to change those things, man, before you dive into any kind of serious relationship, for sure.
Right. I think just another added on that, when you I feel like as believers, like godly believers, as Christians, again, nobody's perfect. We don't get it right. But I feel like the Spirit, like, puts it on our hearts to know when, to like, that we're ready to be seeking this. I think when the time comes on your spirit, is when it's like, okay, let me evaluate, because there's a reason why the Lord's doing that, because now it's time to really get serious about it. Right. And you need to be serious about marriage.
Again, we'd like to thank you for checking out this episode of the Men to Men podcast. Now that you have a good foundation of what you need to be doing as a Christian man in a dating relationship, I want you to take it a little step further and look at this video right here as we talk about different traits and different characteristics and even some red flags that you need to be looking out for while you're in a dating relationship. And if you just simply want to know more about what we do on this channel, I want you to check out this playlist right here. All right, we'll see you in a future video. Peace.